The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and silence. Machines whispered around the man who once commanded boardrooms with a single glance. Now, lay motionless, his pale fingers barely gripping the edge of the blanket. Outside, the city he built his empire in glowed as always, alive, indifferent, moving on. 2 days, the doctor had said. Just 2. Richard had laughed when he first heard it. Not out of humor, but disbelief. A man who owned half the skyline, reduced to a countdown. His lawyers stood ready in the hallway, his business partners waiting for instructions, but none of it mattered anymore. Numbers, contracts, power, it all felt strangely weightless. The only person in the room was his longtime assistant. She stood quietly near the window, holding a folder that contained the final version of his will. He hadn't looked at it yet. "Do you regret anything?" she asked softly, her voice barely cutting through the quiet hum of the machines. Richard turned his head slightly, his tired eyes meeting hers. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I spent my whole life building something, and forgot why I was building it." Clara hesitated. "There's something else," she said, stepping closer. "A letter came for you this morning." Richard frowned. "A letter? No name, no return address. Just this." She handed him a small, worn envelope. It looked old, almost forgotten by time. His fingers trembled as he opened it. Inside was a simple drawing, crayons on paper. A house, a sun, and two stick figures holding hands that on the back, in uneven handwriting, were the words, "You promised you'd come back." Richard's breath caught. His eyes widened, scanning the lines again and again as if trying to make sense of a memory buried too deep. "Where did this come from?" he whispered. Clara shook her head. "It was left at reception, by a little girl." She wouldn't say anything else. A silence filled the room again, but this time it was heavy, different, alive with something unresolved. "Find her," Richard said suddenly, his voice sharper than before. "Please find her." Clara nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. "I'll try." As she left, Richard stared at the drawing. His mind drifted back, years, decades, into a past he had locked away. A small town, a promise, a child's laughter echoing in a place he had abandoned in pursuit of everything he thought mattered. His chest tightened, not from illness, but from realization. For the first time in his life, Richard Hale wasn't thinking about what he owned, he was thinking about what he lost. And somewhere, in the shadows of his fading time, a little girl had just changed everything. The sky was gray on the day of the funeral, as if even the weather refused to shine. Rows of black umbrellas filled the cemetery. A sea of silent figures gathered to honor a man most of them barely knew beyond headlines and wealth rankings. The casket rested at the center, polished to perfection. Flowers surrounded it in extravagant arrangements. White lilies, roses, symbols of respect purchased in bulk. Everything was grand, impressive, empty. Clara stood among the crowd, her eyes scanning faces, hoping, though she didn't know why, to see someone unexpected. The priest spoke. Words about legacy, success, impact, about a life well lived. But Clara knew better. She had seen the regret in Richard's eyes. She had heard the weight behind his final breaths. A man surrounded by everything, yet haunted by something missing. As the ceremony neared its end, a soft murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone had arrived. At the edge of the gathering stood a little girl, no older than 8. Her clothes were simple, almost out of place among the elegance. In her hands, she held a small wooden box. Clara's heart skipped. It was her. The girl walked slowly forward, her steps steady despite the dozens of curious eyes now fixed on her. No one stopped her. No one spoke. When she reached the casket, she placed the box gently on top. For a moment, she just stood there. Then she spoke. "You said you'd come back," she whispered, her voice trembling but clear. "I waited." The words cut through the air like a blade. Clara stepped closer. "Who are you?" she asked gently. The girl looked up, her eyes filled with something far beyond her years. "He saved me once," she said. "A long time ago." Clara frowned. "Saved you?" The girl nodded. "I was alone. My mom, she couldn't take care of me. He found me crying near the station. He gave me food and promised he'd come back the next day." Clara's breath caught. "He never did." The girl continued. "But I kept the drawing I made for him. I thought maybe he forgot where to find me." Silence swallowed the crowd. "And the box?" Clara asked softly. The girl opened it. Inside were dozens of small drawings, each one different, but all telling the same story. A man, a little girl, a promise, days turning into months, months into years. "I kept drawing," she said. "So if he ever came back, he'd know I didn't forget." Clara felt tears welling in her eyes. Richard hadn't forgotten either. Not at the end. "He wanted to find you," Clara whispered. "He tried before he—" The girl looked at the casket, her small hand resting gently on it. "I know," she said quietly. The wind picked up, rustling the trees around them. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had paused, to witness something no amount of money could buy. Not redemption, but truth. The girl stepped back, leaving the box behind. And as the crowd stood in stunned silence, one thing became painfully clear. In the end, the most valuable thing the millionaire ever had wasn't his fortune. It was a promise he never got the chance to keep.